So what's going on guys, Kids here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best spear build in Albion Online. So I will show you what abilities and armor you want to get. Then I will explain every single skill and what is the best skill rotation that you want to use for both PvP and PvE. And then lastly I will show you the best gameplay so you would be able to get the best results and highest damage possible and much more. So no matter how much silver you have or how high or low your weapon levels are, you can easily use this build and follow the step-by-step guide. So if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then moving over to the build, and for the weapon we are going to use a spear. This build is great for solo players because of its mobility, the outplay potential, it's pretty cheap, and most importantly, it has very good damage for fighting in PvP or even farming mobs. And then finally, you can use the setup starting with tier 4 equipment and pretty low levels in the Destiny board, so no matter what type of player, new or veteran you are, this build is definitely for you. So then moving over to the build, and for the weapon we are going to use the spear. So for your Q you pick the first option, then for your W you pick the third option, and then lastly for your passive you go with the live leech, which is the second option. And then for our offhand we are going to use the torch. Then for the helmet you want to get the hunter's hood and pick the third ability and first passive. Then for chest armor go with the mage robe and pick the third ability and first passive. Then for boots go with the soldier boots and choose the second ability and second passive. Then for your cape you pick the Tether cape, and then lastly for your consumables you want to go with the resistance potions and dead water eels too. But then for alternatives, specifically for open world ganking or general PvP, I would switch in the soldier boots to the third ability, which will give us longer speed boost, but it will not give us an instant speed increase, but it will go up gradually. And then lastly for our spear, specifically for the highest AoE damage, so for mob farming, I would pick the first W skill. As I've said in other videos, in my opinion the best builds are versatile, so you can get 100% performance no matter in what type of event you are participating. So that's why having multiple options and alternatives is the way to go. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay, where I will show you the best way to play this build. So for the first Q spell we have the lunging strike, which is a basic attack that will stab the enemy in 9-meter range, and you can stack this attack 3 times, with each time increasing your auto attack damage. Then our second W skill is the cripple, which is mainly meant for PvP, as the skill will do damage, then purge all movement skills and slow the enemy and even give you 50% speed boost if you purge the enemy's speed in return. But if he wasn't using anything, then you will still do all the same things except getting the speed boost. Then our E is Reckless Charge, which is a simple spell that will dash towards the enemy and do a bunch of damage. The more stacks you have, the higher damage you will do, and as you will throw the enemy in the air for 0.6 seconds, so you can cancel your enemy's spell if they have animation. So as I've said, for the Q skill, you want to use it 3 times to get to 3 stacks, and then only use the E skill. Then for our R skill we have the Purging Shield, which will give us damage resistance, and if the enemy attacks us, all of his buffs will be removed. Then our D skill is called Retaliate, which when we activate this ability, we will reflect 85% of the enemy's damage. So for example, if he attacks you for 1000 damage, then you will get hit by only 150 damage, and he will basically hit himself for the rest 850 damage. Then our F skill is just a simple movement speed increase ability that will increase our speed by 80% and give us health regen for 5 seconds. And then finally we have the Eels too, which will increase our damage and cooldown reduction. Then our resistance potions will give us resistance, so we will use it if we ever get in trouble or are about to take a lot of damage. And then lastly we will get few cabbage soups in our inventory to use if we ever get in trouble again. So what you want to do is, if you get chased or even run low on health, then if you keep running and get out of combat, then you can switch to the soup and use it, and in a few seconds your health will regen to full because of the 270% health regen buff. So this is a simple trick that we can use. But don't forget that this soup is like any other food consumable, so it will overrun our stew because they don't stack. So I would recommend to only use the soup rarely. And then lastly we of course have our Tether cape, which will work in the background, that every few seconds we auto attack, we will do extra lightning damage. And this is another great AoE passive damage that will increase our overall damage even more. So with all of this said, now let's move over to the rotation. In PvE and PvP basically work the same way. So then at the beginning of the fight you want to use your Q 3 times. Then you use your W and then your E skill. Then from here I assume that the damage will be coming your way, so use your R skill and resistance potions if needed. And then when you actually start receiving damage where the enemy uses his E skill, then you want to reflect it by using the D skill. And then lastly, if you ever need to chase or escape the enemy, then use your F skill. So now let's see what we did in this rotation. But first, while using Q 3 times, we will do damage from medium range and get 3 stacks. So then we use our W skill, which will increase our damage, do damage and purge the enemy. So then we use our E skill with max stacks, which will do insane amount of damage. And then finally, for our rest of the skills, we can use them depending on the fight, as all of them are defensive skills. So we can use the R skill and resistance potions preemptively, while the D skill is meant for more outplay with the reflect ability and etc. So then in my final conclusions, this build is very cheap and low level friendly, as most skills you don't need high levels to unlock, and all of these gear pieces are not artifacts, so you can keep using this setup and outplay the enemy mobs or other solo players. This spear in general is very popular and overpowered weapon, because it combines close to medium range playstyle, so depending on what you want to do or against what type of enemy you are fighting, you can either way push him and fight him close range, or on the other hand you can keep poking and catching the enemy with the medium ranged attacks. As a spear player, you have the perfect balance between damage and survivability, so use it to your advantage. Always keep poking the enemy from range. Then if you're fame farming, then don't forget about your main AoE skills, like the first W and your E skill. Because if you line up your E dash with full 3 stacks, then you can damage all the enemies that you just dashed through. So overall, if you're looking for a beginner friendly and the best spear build, then here you go, so enjoy! So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback or other good Albion Online builds that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you will not miss any more amazing content. With all this said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in my next video, so take it easy, peace.